Hey guys, if you like what you see, please subscribe. Thanks for joining me. Hello, and welcome to Sharp Ends. Today we're going to be talking about fixed blade knives. Well, a fixed blade, unlike a pocket knife, doesn't fold. What is the advantage of that? Well, the advantage is you can do bushcraft things and you're not depending on a lock. This is a shark lock, so it is strong, but you're not depending on the lock to hold the blade here. So what you can do then is you can be a lot more tough to it. It's a little bit more simple to make as well. Price ranges can go all over the place. Bushcraft is the number one thing that you can use, but you're probably using it more often in the kitchen, right? You're using a knife like this to cook with, and it has a full tang, which means this metal part going through the blade, through the handle. Having a good kitchen knife is important. You want it to be sharp, and one of the best ways to keep a knife sharp is by stropping it with a paddle, with a piece of leather strapped to a paddle with some compound rubbed into it. There are other uses for these, like bushcraft, like I was just saying. The cheapest knife that you can get is going to be, that is a really nice knife, I should say, is called a Mora. And these are about $16, $17. And this is the basic one. It comes with a sheath that's plastic, so you can put it on. And it comes with, and you can see I've used this, it comes with a Scandi grind, which means that the grind starts high up and goes down almost like a wedge, right? Well, that's good for splitting wood or splitting anything because it forces the wood apart. And because it's so thick at the back here of the tang, you can hit it with another piece of wood here to drive it through and cut and split wood, or to feather stick, which is a method of taking a piece of wood, shaving it down so that you can start a fire real fast. I'm going to pause this real fast. And I'm back. I was looking for a ferro rod to show you that. So one of the good things about a fixed blade is that you can use the spine on the back here, if it's the right shape, to throw sparks off a ferro rod to start a fire, which is a good survival tool to have. You don't need to rely on, with a ferro, you don't need to rely on a lighter or it getting wet or anything. A ferro rod will work every single time. So a combination of ferro rod and one of these, you can start a fire. I couldn't find mine, so I'm not gonna be able to show you, but you want a nice sharp spine back here. This one's pretty good, but it's actually a little bit rounded. This one, which is my other Mora, and this one's a much more expensive Mora, is a little bit sharper, and it makes sparks really, really well. This is a Scandi grind as well. This has a tang that goes back into here, but it doesn't go all the way back to the end, whereas this one, its tang literally comes out the back end here. So this handle is just encompassing a big chunk of metal. Makes it stronger. This metal is also a little bit better. It's the stainless version, but most of these metals are going to be something like 1090V, or it's going to be like with a Mora knife, it says carbon, so it's a little bit tougher. Stainless, this one will rust a little bit less, but it's still plenty tough. Steels in fixed blade knives tend to sometimes be a little bit cheaper because the metal has to go all the way through the handle. And when it does that, there's a lot more metal involved. It's also a knife that you're going to beat around a lot more. That is not always the case. There are definitely some knives made by people like Falkhaven and others who make very nice fixed blades out of hard steel. One of the most common one of the more high-end one is something called 3V. This Demco actually is made with 3V, which is known as being a very tough, sharp, long-lasting, as far as keeping its edge type of blade. So again, Mora, super cheap, easy. You know where I keep this one? I keep this one inside of my kindling bucket next to my fireplace, and this is what I split and make feather sticks with, and how I start my fire. Very cool, very awesome knife. You can't beat it for $17. Another knife that you can't really beat for its price point is this. This is Bsk Knives, and these are made in Ukraine. So when you buy one of these, you're supporting Ukraine right now. This is a knife, has its spine, and it is super sharp. And actually, look at that. It's got a little bit of rust on it. That is crazy. So this is 1065, and it's not a stainless steel. It is a carbon steel, which is good for being roughed up and stuff. Now, this knife has not been exposed to weather. This has just been in my garage, and it has been damp lately, but it's been inside its sheath. So that's interesting. So a carbon steel, it's gonna wear, it's gonna get some rust on it. You want to keep it clean and oiled up to keep the rust off of it. This is a really nice knife for $30. Full tang survival. It's got a nice Scandi grind on it. It's got this compound bevel. It's going to be good for splitting wood and making all sorts of things. It also came extraordinarily sharp. That's BPS Knives again. So BPS Knives, yeah, very sharp. $30. Support of Ukraine. Nice full tang. Nice metal. And it comes with a sheath too, this leather sheath. So that is also on the cheap side. Also on the cheap side. So the other good thing about, fixed blade knives, besides using the kitchen, this is one of my favorites. And this is, you can get at any restaurant supply store. It's made in Japan. It is a bone fillet knife. I started using these, and these are pretty generic, but they all have this kind of shape. I started using this when I worked in a restaurant, and it's become one of my favorite knives, so much so that I always have one in my kitchen, no matter where I am. This thing is super slicey. So one of the main differences between a kitchen knife and a bushcraft knife is that it's going to be thin because you want to slice through what you're cutting. This knife is stainless. It will never rust, and it is super sharp, and it will cut and fillet meat all day long. For the bushcraft version of these, I've got kind of some knives that kind of go in my kitchen for whenever I'm camping. One of them is the Bow River, and this one I actually keep in my kitchen all the time. It's made by Spyderco. It is, I believe, $40, $42, something like that. It is 8CR13 MOV, which is not a good steel, but for a kitchen knife, absolutely fine. Stays sharp easily with just a little bit of stropping. Nice finish on it, nice handle, good ergos, and it's just a great kitchen knife. And it's good to keep in your camping kitchen too. Like, I keep this in my regular kitchen just to use. And then I'm going to talk about 3 other knives that I've recently gotten. One is made by North Arms. They make the Shaka folding knife, which is what they're most famous for in the knife community. This is their mallard and trout knife. It's made out of MagnaCut. Don't know if you can see that. It says MagnaCut on it. It's got these grooves machined into it. MagnaCut is almost entirely rust resistant, also extraordinarily tough. It keeps an edge for a very long time. It uses an interesting mix of metallurgy, different compounds to keep it sharp and tough and stainless, and it's kind of like the new super steel. It was developed by a guy named Laren Thomas, and he's a real nerd about steels. He actually has a great channel and some great books if you want to learn more about steel. But I got to tell you, it's heavy material. And this little trout knife with the G10 scales is a nice little Perry knife. Comes with this beautiful sheath. I changed it to a ulti clip. This is great for camping, having a round on me while I camp, clipping it to my belt. Awesome knife. I can't recommend it enough. It was really, really, really cheap compared to what you're going to pay for most fixed blades and things. That's North Arms. They're Canadian, made in Canada. You can see the maple leaf right there. How much did it cost me? For the sheath of the knife included, I didn't look this up before I made this video, but I believe it was around 115 bucks, which is a really good price for a little fixed blade like this. Now, this isn't a bushcraft knife. This is a kitchen knife that is meant for taking with you camping and small game preparation and cooking. Very nice. And then we've got the Overland knife made by Chris Schwarz, I believe is his name. There's a folding version of the Overland, and the folding version of the Overland is kind of a cheap flipper. Looks the same kind of profile. The concept of it being a camping knife, which is also a bushcraft knife. So you use this for food prep, but you're not afraid to use it in other ways as well. I've never tested to see if this does good with a ferro rod. I'm going to guess it's not because this corner is so nicely beveled. But you could chop wood with this. It doesn't have a Scandi grind, but it does come back to a nice bevel. And what I would say about this is that, like, if you're splitting apples, and to some degree it forces it apart, it doesn't slice the apple apart. But for vegetables and food prep, it's awesome. It's a nice fixed blade. It's also magna cut. Reasonably priced, although the wait list on getting one of these, it took me, I think it took me 4 months to get one, but I was able to customize it with exactly what I wanted. I wanted the copper washers on the sides and this kind of material. There's a lot of more colorful types of material. The tang is full and nice. The sheath is great. Again, I got the Ulti clip and replaced it with the one that was sent with me, which was like a plastic one. This is very nice, also very great to hold, to have in your kitchen when you go camping. Finally, I have this, which is a Spyderco Mule. Now, the Mule is a platform of knives where Spyderco tests different types of materials, metals that you wouldn't necessarily always expect to find. This is Rex 76, which is a very rare steel to find in pocket knives or fixed blade knives because it's extraordinarily tough. The HRC, which is basically how hard it is 68 to 70. To give you an idea of how much more that is, most pocket knives are in the upper 50s, lower 60s. And the toughest steels, like 3V, are going to be like around 64. And that's considered an extraordinarily tough steel. And this coming in at 68 to 70 is amazing. This is a tool steel. It's going to be used in machines that are going to make punch out materials all day long, forever, and never get dull. This knife will stay sharp forever. So why don't more people use this kind of steel? Very hard to machine. To get it to the point where you can sharpen it up after it does become dull is very hard. However, if you're in a survival situation and you're not going to be sharpening your knife for a long time, this is the kind of knife steel that you want. The Mule itself is a nice little fixed blade. When you buy it, it doesn't actually come with a scale, so you have to buy either secondary scales, which there's plenty of people selling them on Etsy or on the internet, or get the ones from Spyderco. To get a Mule, you need to order it directly from Spyderco.com. This Rex 76 was sold out almost immediately. They're steels, but they come out with the Mules and different kinds of steel very often. So this I just had to get because of the kind of steel and the hardness. And I don't have a Mule, and I wanted to get one and hold it. The ergos on this are great. I did not get a sheath. I ordered one from the secondary market from Etsy rather than getting the one that they had on the site because I thought it would look nicer than the one that they were selling stock. Full tang again. It has the ergos of a Spyderco. It holds nice. It's got that nice leaf-shaped profile that Spyderco is famous for. This is so tough that I would have no problem using this to split some wood. It doesn't have a Scandi grind, but it does come back to a relatively thick spine at the back. It probably would not be as easy as the Mora to split wood with. So in recap, you're already using fixed blades, but you might want to get a little bit more specialized. Sometimes you find a knife that is really good at something for prepping meat. A nice little Perry knife is always amazing. This I use in my kitchen, and I also take camping with me. It's made out of magna cut. I don't care if it gets wet or if I leave it out in the rain or whatever. Having a nice little camping knife like this is much more practical to take if I'm going to chop a bunch of vegetables and make a little fire than it would be like taking my full kitchen knife, right? This is going to stay in my kitchen. Having a cheap fixed blade like the Mora with a Scandi grind on it is perfect for keeping next to your fireplace or your fire pit for prepping wood or starting fires. Having a more expensive one is going to give you a little bit more flexibility in actually starting fires and bushcraft, making traps, doing that kind of things. You know, you can see that this knife is dirty. Like, I use it. That's good. Bsk Knives, they make a good bushcraft knife. I got the carbon one. They also make a stainless version of this. The carbon one here looks like it has gotten a little bit of patina / rust on it just from sitting around in my damp garage. But again, I think this is a great knife, very good ergos, and this is going to make all kinds of great bushcraft type implements. And I would highly recommend getting the Spyderco Bow River, BOW. Very cheap knife from Spyderco that is perfect in the kitchen. It looks nice. I love this handle, this textured G10. I think it's G10, or maybe it's actually carbon fiber. This might actually be carbon fiber handle, which is crazy for Spyderco because Spyderco knives are pretty expensive. Anyway, there are some other people that I do not have. I do not have any Benchmade fixed blades, which they have a lot of. I don't have them because whenever you buy a Benchmade, you're paying a tax, which is called a butterfly tax, which means that you're paying extra just to have a butterfly on it. I don't think it's worth it. So I don't own any of the Benchmade stuff. Falk-Laven, and you know, the most expensive knife on here is probably this guy at $150. Falk-Laven and other companies, a lot of Austrian, Swedish type companies that make fixed blades. You're looking at that are made out of like 3V or 2V or, you know, some other really great steels. You're looking at paying like $400 to thousands of dollars for a fixed blade knife. If you're into bushcraft and you're living several months a year out in the wilderness, you should get one of those, I guess. By the same token, you could buy like 5 of these, and although they're not as good as a Falk-Laven, this is pretty good for its price point. I got to tell you, I'm not disappointed. So that's my basic intro to fixed blades. I don't have a massive collection of these, but I thought it would be interesting for you guys to maybe get a little bit accustomed to seeing them, and let me know what you think. If you are into camping and other stuff, are you going to expand your collection into some fixed blades? And what do you think are like some glaring things that I'm missing or that I'm leaving out of this review? I'd appreciate it. Thanks, guys, and I will see you next time on Sharp Ends. Bye-bye.